I'm going to look at some of the similarities and differences between the Smith Wesson M&P 380 Shield EZ and the relatively new Ruger Security 380 Lite Rack. I'm going to take the magazines out, make sure there is no round in the chamber, completely unloaded. No round in the chamber, completely unloaded. Both of these guns are designed to be easier to operate for people that may have limited hand strength, and they have both done a good job at this. And these guns are very similar in a lot of ways, but they do have some differences that we're going to look at. The Smith Wesson 380 EZ retails for $454, and the Ruger Security 380 retails for $369. So the first thing we're going to talk about is round count. The Shield EZ comes with 2 magazines, and each one holds 8 rounds of 380. So you have 8 plus 1 in the chamber, a maximum of 9 rounds. The Ruger has 2 magazines that come with it. This is your California compliant magazine, holds 10 rounds plus 1 in the chamber, so you can carry 11. It also comes with the larger magazine, which holds 15 rounds. It makes the gun a little bit bigger, as you can see. It adds about 3/4 of an inch to the grip, but you get 5 extra rounds for a total of 16 that this gun is capable of carrying. As far as ease of loading the magazines, the Ruger Security 380 comes with a pretty standard 10-round magazine as well as a 15-round magazine, but we're just looking at the 10-round magazine here. It is a double stack. Within the column it holds 2 rounds side by side, and to load this magazine is just the standard method. Just put them in one at a time from the top using the thumb like that. It does get harder as you get closer to 10 rounds, but I didn't find it terribly difficult. However, someone with limited hand strength may find it a little bit challenging. So it does come with an easy loader or a speed loader, which certainly helps, especially if you don't have finger or hand strength. It helps you press it down so you can slide the next one in. The Smith Wesson 380 Shield EZ, however, comes with a nice little feature on the magazine. It is a single stack, so it only holds 1 on top of each other, but it has this little tab over here which allows you to pull the follower down, and in my opinion it makes it super easy to load this magazine. You don't really have to have much hand strength. The spring, of course, gets a little harder to pull down here, but I don't think it's going to be too difficult for most people to load this magazine. So just to compare the weight of the Ruger Security 380 without a magazine comes in at 17 ounces. The Smith Wesson M&P Shield 380 EZ comes in at 16.9, 16.8. So they are pretty comparable there. With an empty magazine inserted, Smith & Wesson comes in at 18.5. The Ruger Security 380 comes in at 19.7. So they are pretty comparable. Just keep in mind with the extra rounds that this can hold, this could potentially be maybe another ounce or 2 heavier. All right, as far as width goes, these are pretty close in width. I would say the Ruger is probably ever so slightly wider, but also keep in mind that with the safety, the ambidextrous safety on here, it's going to be a little bit wider right here in the rear. But as far as width goes, they're pretty doggone close. The Smith & Wesson is actually, looks like about a 1/2 inch longer from front to back. And when we're looking at grip size, the Smith & Wesson is actually just about as long if you count the little extra tang on here, but they're very comparable in size. They both have the Picatinny rail on the front, so you can put a very small light on the gun. Okay, so now I want to just compare the sights. The Shield EZ just has 3 painted white dots, 1 in front and 2 in the back. I kind of like that personally. It kind of really draws your eye, in my opinion, to the sights when you hold them up. Now that's a preference thing. Lots of different sights out there. Lots of people have different preferences. The sights on here, the front sight is a fiber optic sight, so that's nothing super special, but it does help brighten it a little bit using the light in the room. And there's nothing on the back, so you just kind of line that up in the notch. Not a big fan of that type of sight, although, you know, it works just fine. As far as low light, so let's turn down the light a little bit. All right, it's not super low light in here right now. I can still see the white dots better. Let me make it even darker in here a little bit. It's a little bit darker. There's still some light in the room. I mean, there's enough light to get around. I can't see either one of these sights. I don't think either one of these is very good at low light. In daylight, both of these are great. In low light, not so much. You may consider swapping out for upgraded night sights on both of these guns. The other thing I want to talk about is the safeties on these guns. The Smith & Wesson has an easy to operate ambidextrous safety. This is one thing to consider. If you're carrying a gun with the safety, it's very easy to pop that safety off and use it. However, I've also found that it's almost too easy. Where just handling this gun, you can very easily knock that safety off. So if you're someone who feels like a safety is very important, it's almost too easy to pop that safety off. But it is easy to operate. Whereas on the Ruger, you have the safety in the back. It's a little harder to operate. Not terribly so. It's smaller when you're on safe. If you're going to use it, it is fairly easy to flip that off. It's a little harder to put it on safe, but I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. You're never really in a hurry to put it on safe. You're going to be in more of a hurry to pop that off a safe if you need to use the firearm. Okay, so racking the slides on both of these pistols is really easy, and the design of the slide really helps. You've got a couple of little ears in the back right here that you can grab onto. You have good serrations right here. You also have an indent on this side of this slide on the Ruger Security 380, so you can get your thumb in there and really get a good grip on the slide. On this gun, you can also find a couple of ears further up. So you can grab this in a multitude of different ways and still rack that slide. The Smith Wesson Shield EZ is similar. It has a few less places to grip it, but it's got a couple of ears right here. Get your finger in there real easy. On the back, it's got a couple of little ears as well and some serrations. Which probably work if you do it that way. The slides on both of these guns are very easy to grasp and very easy to operate, even if you have gloves on. Now here's another interesting feature comparison is the grip safety back here. If you're unfamiliar with grip safeties, in order for this gun to fire, you have to be holding it correctly and depressing that grip safety with your grip. If you don't depress that grip safety, the trigger does nothing. Depressing the grip safety, then the trigger fires. So that's good and bad. It's a great safety feature. However, if you draw this quickly, if you don't have a perfect grip on this, your gun's not going to fire. So you really have to train to grab that perfectly every time. So a lot of people really don't like these. It's just another point of failure. The Ruger does not have grip safety. So this one, it's going to fire. Even if you have a little bit of a sloppy grip, you get accosted out on the street and your adrenaline's pumping, you might not get the perfect grip. Your gun doesn't fire, and in the heat of the moment, you can't figure out why. Depending on how you feel about that may help you decide on which one of these guns you might like to use. So the other thing I'm just going to compare is the trigger. So if you notice, this trigger has what's called a trigger safety on it. So this little lever helps prevent the trigger from going back without a finger in here. So if it gets caught in your clothing or something like that, there's less chance of the trigger being pressed unless this is also pressed. Glocks have that kind of a safety on them. So I'm just going to feel this trigger. Then I'm going to kind of compare it to this trigger. This does not have that same trigger safety. They definitely feel different, but they both feel pretty good. I'm going to listen for the trigger reset. And all that is when you release the trigger, you have to wait for the reset before you can fire again. And then once you hear the reset, you can fire again. It's a very, very quiet reset. Let me feel the reset here. This has a little bit longer travel before it resets, so you do have to let up on the trigger a little bit more on the Ruger. I would say the Smith & Wesson definitely has a little bit better trigger. Not a deal breaker between these two pistols. Another thing I want to compare is the grip width. Now, as you can see, this gun has a certain width here, but then it's narrower down through the grip. Now, that might be good for people with smaller hands. And the grip is not adjustable. There's no way you can make it larger or smaller. It's the same with this gun. But one thing to note is with recoil, when you're shooting this gun, even though it's only a 380, it does have a little bit of recoil. The wider the grip is, the more that recoil is kind of spread out. So it's a little bit easier on the hand, a little bit more comfortable to shoot a gun that's got a wider grip. So this gun is probably going to be a little more comfortable to shoot because of that wider grip. One other difference that I've noticed is the Smith & Wesson has what's called a chamber loaded indicator up here. So what that does is when there is no round in the chamber, this is flush with the top. Everything is smooth up here. But if there's a round in the chamber, then this little indicator pops up. Very easy way to tell that there's a round loaded in the chamber. You should never 100% depend on that. You should always chamber check your gun whenever you're handling it to see if there's a round in the chamber or not. You should be able to visualize that. So that's a feature this gun has. This gun does not have the same type of chamber loaded indicator. What this has that a lot of other guns have is just a little notch in the top. So you can look down, you'll be able to see the shiny brass down there. But again, that's not as easy to notice whether you have a round in the chamber or not. So that's another little feature that the Smith & Wesson has that the Ruger does not. So hopefully you learned a few things about the differences between these two guns. If you like this video, please hit like below. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them down in the comments section and I will try to answer all your questions if you have any. And thanks for watching.